Okay, so today we are gonna be reading a Wikipedia article. This Wikipedia article. Hold up. Wikipedia. Oh fuck. Um. Okay. So. Um. I'm gonna be reading a Wikipedia article for Nova Scotia with a speech impediment because I have a speech impediment. Hopefully this doesn't take too long because I only have enough disk space for around an hour left of recording. So hopefully it doesn't take too long. So, yeah, you can listen to this while you're playing video games, you're reading, studying, blah, 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 blah. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, Nova Scotia is a province of Canada. Located on its east coast. It is one of the three maritime provinces and the most populous province in Atlantic Canada with an estimate population of over 1 million as of 2024. It is also the second most densely populated province in Canada, the second smallest province by area, and the second smallest province by area. The province comprises of the Nova Scotia Peninsula and Cape Breton Island, as long as 3,800 other coastal islands. The province is connected to the rest of Canada by the isthmus something of Giganto, which on which the province's land border with New Brunswick is located. Jesus Christ. Jeez, that took a while. Anyway, Nova Scotia's capital city and largest municipality is Halifax. Hey, that's where I live. Which is home to over 45% of the province's population as of the 2021 census. Halifax is the 12th largest census metropolitan area in Canada, the largest municipality in Atlantic Canada, and Canada's second largest coastal municipality after Vancouver. The land that makes up what is now Nova Scotia is inhabited by I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, people at the time of the European colonization. In 1605, Acadia, France's first New France, a colony was founded with the creation of Acadia's capital, Port Royal. The Scotch, English, then British fought France for the territory on numerous occasions for over a century. Afterwards, having gained it from them in the 1713 Peace of Utrecht, which ended the War of Spanish Succession. In the subsequent years, the British began settling foreign Protestants in the region and deported French-speaking Acadians en masse during the American Revolutionary War. From 1775 to 1783. Thousands of loyalists settled in Nova Scotia. In 1848, Nova Scotia became the first British colony to achieve a responsible government. Jesus. In July 1867, Nova Scotia joined a confederation with New Brunswick, the province of Canada, now Ontario, correct? Holding the Dominion of Canada. Alright, etymology. Nova Scotia is Latin for New Scotland. It is the recognized Canadian English name for the province. In both Canadian French and Canadian Gaelic, the province is directly translated as New Scotland. Canadian Gaelic, Alba Nucha. In general, Romance and Slavic languages use the translation of New Scotland to their language, which most other languages use transliterations of the Latin, which is the same as English. Name. The province was first named in the 1621 Royal Charter granting to Sir William Alexander the right to settle lands as a Scottish colony, including modern Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and the Gaspé Peninsula. History! This is gonna get long. That's not that long. Never mind. Anyway, so actually I'm gonna search up how to pronounce this word. So I don't have to say, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it, so you know what I'm talking about. Because you can't see my screen. Micmac. Okay, Micmac. Okay. That's according to Google, and Google never lies. Anyway, Nova Scotia includes the regions of the Micmac Nation and the Micmaci the territory of which extends across the Maritimes, parts of Maine, Newfoundland, and the Gaspe Peninsula. The Micmac people are part of the large Algonquian family and inhabited Nova Scotia at the time the first European colonists arrived. The research published in 1871, as well as S.T. Rand's work from 1894, showed that some Micmac believed that they had immigrated from the West and then lived alongside the what the fuck does that say? Please stand by. It might come back again, so I'm gonna look up how to pronounce it. Okay. Okay. And lived alongside the Gwitichek, the original inhabitants. The two tribes engaged in a war that lasted many years and involved the slaughter of men, women, children, and the torture of captives. The eventual displacement of the Gwitichek by the victorious Micmac. European settlement. The first Europeans to settle in the area were the French, who sailed into Annapolis Basin in 1604, but chose to settle at St. Croix Island in Maine instead. They abandoned the main settlement in the following year, and in 1605 established a settlement at Port Royal, which grew into modern-day Annapolis Royal. And this would be the first permanent European settlement in what would later become Canada. The settlement was in the Mi'kmaq district of that, and was the founding of the settlement that would become Acadia. In 1621, King James VI of Scotland granted a charter to allow Scottish colonies to be founded in North America. The charter, which was granted by the king, covered the area of the Maritime provinces and the Gaspe Peninsula. While the French had gained territory in Acadia, the charter granted Sir William Alexander, a Scottish noble, powers to establish a system of government, full rights over fishing and materials, and the arrival of around 70 Scots to settle in the area that is now known as New Scotland. New Scotland was captured by the French in 1632, and the Scots who had colonized the area forced to return to Scotland after the French occupation. Following a prolonged period of change between the French and the British, Nova Scotia eventually returned to the British, which by now includes Scotland as one of the countries of the UK, following the Treaty of the Union. As a result, many Scots grasped the opportunity to once again settle in Nova Scotia. Now, warfare was common in Nova Scotia during the 17th and 18th century. Now, during the first 80 years, the French and Acadians lived in Nova Scotia. Nine significant military clashes took place as the English, Dutch, French, Micmac, and the Micmac fought for possession in the area. These encounters happened at Port Royal, St. John, Cap de Sable, present-day Punico, Port Latour, Nova Scotia, Jemseg, and Baleine. The Acadian Civil War took place from 1640 to 1645, beginning with King William's War in 1866. A series of 6 wars took place between the English and the French, and Nova Scotia being consistent theater of conflict between the two powers. Hostilities between England and France in North America resumed from 1702 to 1713, known as Queen Anne's War. The siege of Port Royal took place in 1710, ending French rule in the peninsular Acadia. The subsequent signing of the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 formally recognizes the British rule in the region, while returning to Cape Breton Island and Prince Edward Island to the French. Despite the British conquest of Acadia, Nova Scotia remained primarily occupied by the Catholic Acadians and the Micmac, who confined the British forces to Annapolis and Canso, present-day New Brunswick. Wait. Confined British forces to Annapolis and to Canso. Present-day New Brunswick formed a part of the French colony of Acadia. Immediately after the capture of Port Royal in 1710, Francis Nicholson announced that it would be named Annapolis Royal in honor of Queen Anne. As a result of the Father Rails War, the Micmac signed a series of treaties with the British in 1725. The Micmac signed a treaty of submission to the British Crown. However, the conflict between the Acadians and the Micmac, French and British persisted in the following decades with King George's War. Father Lelouch's War, Jesus Christ, I cannot talk. Began with Edward Cornwallis, Jesus fucking Christ, arrived to establish Halifax with 13 transports. I'm really dehydrated today. On the 21st of June 1749, a general court made up of governor and the council was the highest court in the colony at the time. Making sure it's still recording me. I've been recording. Hold up. Fuck. Okay. I'm gonna put it. Shit. Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna minimize it. Oh, actually, I'm gonna do this. Anyway. Who are we? Wait. A general court made up of the governor and the council was the highest court in the colony at the time. Jonathan Belcher. Jonathan Belcher. That's a very unfortunate name. Was sworn in as Chief Justice of the Nova Scotia Supreme Court on the 21st of October, 1754, the first legislative assembly in Halifax, under the governorship of Charles Lawrence, met on the 2nd of October, 1756. I need to burp. Hold up. I'll just copy out burp. Anyway, during the French and Indian War of 1754 to 1763, the North American Theater of the 7 Years' War, the British deported the Acadians and recruited New England planters to resettle the colony. The 75-year period of the war ended with the Halifax Treaties between the British and the Micmac. After the war, some Acadians were allowed to return. In 1763, most of Acadia became part of Nova Scotia. In 1765, the county of Sunbury was created. This included the territory of present-day New Brunswick and eastern Maine, as far as the Penobscot River. In 1769, St. John's Island became a separate colony. The American Revolution had a significant impact in shaping Nova Scotia, with the colony initially displaying ambivalence to whether the colony should join the Revolution. The Revolution flared at the Battle of Fort Cumberland. I really need to get some water, but I want to finish this recording though. We just do take two. No, that's stupid. Anyway, the American Revolution had a significant impact on shaping Nova Scotia. The colony initially displaying ambivalence over whether the colony should join the Revolution. Or whether the colony should join the Revolution. Oh, please be right, Mel. Fuck you. Revolution. Fuck. Rebellion flared at the Battle of Fort Cumberland in the siege of St. John. Throughout the war, American privateers devastated the maritime colony by capturing ships and looting almost every community outside of Halifax. These American raids alienated many sympathetic or neutral Nova Scotians into supporting the British. By the end of the war, Nova Scotia had outfitted numerous privateers to attack American shipping. Wowza! Yowza. British military forces based at Halifax succeeded in preventing an American occupation of Nova Scotia, though the Royal Navy failed to establish naval supremacy in the region. While the British captured many American privateers in battles such as the naval battle of Halifax, Many more continued attacks on shipping and settlements until the final months of the war. The Royal Navy struggled to maintain British supply lines, defending British convoys from American and French attacks in the fiercely fought convoy battle, the Battle off Cape Breton. How? Okay. 2 more paragraphs, and then we have a pretty small paragraph. Then we have some more stuff. Okay. Alright, we're almost done with history. Okay, we're almost done with history class. After the Americans and their French allies won at the Siege of Yorktown in 1781, approximately 3,300 loyalists settled in Nova Scotia. 1,400 of them, which in what became New Brunswick, on lands granted by the Crown as some compensation for their losses. The British Admiration divided Nova Scotia and hived off Cape Breton and New Brunswick in 1784. The Loyalist exodus created new communities across Nova Scotia, including Shelburne, which briefly became one of the larger British settlements in North America. It infused Nova Scotia with additional capital and skills. The migration caused political tension between Loyalist leaders and the leaders of the existing New England planter settlement. The Loyalist influx also pushed Nova Scotia's 2,000 Micmac people to the margins as Loyalist land grants encroached on ill-defined native lands. As part of the Loyalist migration, about 3,000 black loyalists arrived. They founded the largest free black settlement in North America at Birchtown, near Shelburne. There are several black loyalists buried in unmarked graves at the old burying ground in Halifax. I've been there. Many Nova Scotian communities were settled by British regiments that fought in the war. During the War of 1812, Nova Scotia's contribution to the British war effort involved communities either purchasing or building various privateer ships to attack U.S. vessels. Perhaps one of the most dramatic moments in the war for Nova Scotia occurred when the HMS Shannon escorted the American frigate, the USS Chesapeake, into Halifax Harbor in 1813. Many of the U.S. prisoners were kept at Dead Man's Island. Yeah, alright. When Nova Scotia first became a colony in British North America and the British Empire to achieve responsible government in January of 1848, it became self-governing through the efforts of Joseph Howe. Nova Scotia had established representative government in 1758, an achievement later commemorated by the erection I said the funny word of Dingle Tower in 1908. Wow! 2 very funny words. Wow, I am literally 13. I don't know what I'm yapping about. Anyway, Nova Scotians fought in the Crimean War of 1853 to 1856. I'm actually 12. Anyway, the 1860 Wealth. That should be easy. Wells Ford Parker Monument in Halifax is the second oldest war monument in Canada and the only Crimean War monument in North America. Commemorates the 1854-55 siege of Sevastopol. That's something I didn't know about. I've even been there. Yeah, I haven't even been there. I live in Halifax. Anyway, thousands of Nova Scotians fought in the American Civil War, primarily on the behalf of the North. The British Empire, including Nova Scotia, declared itself neutral in the conflict. As a result, Britain and Nova Scotia continued to trade with both the South and the North. Nova Scotia's economy boomed during the Civil War. Boom! Haha. Finally, we're on geography. Yay! Yeah. Nova Scotia is Canada's second smallest province in area, after Prince Edward Island. I'm gonna just go ahead. I'm gonna pause the recording real quick. Please stand by. Okay, guys. While the recording was was paused, I went to go get some water, and probably I hit puberty too. I don't know why I'm speaking so deep. Anyway, so let's get back to this. I got some water. Okay. Anyway, Nova Scotia is Canada's. That voice crack, Jesus Christ. Okay, Nova Scotia is Canada's second smallest province in area, after Prince Edward Island. It is surrounded by 4 major bodies of water. Count them, 4. The Gulf of St. Louis to the north, the Bay of Fundy to the west, the mighty and the Gulf of Maine to the southwest, the Atlantic Ocean to the east. The province's mainland is the Nova Scotia Peninsula. It includes numerous bays and estuaries. Nowhere in Nova Scotia is more than 67 kilometers from the ocean. That's 42 miles for you Americans. Cape Breton Island, a large island to the northeast of the Nova Scotia mainland, is also part of the province. Also part of the province, you dumb fucks! As is Sable Island, a small island notorious for being the site of offshore shipwrecks. Approximately 175 kilometers from the province's southern coast. That's 110 miles. Nova Scotia has many ancient fossil-bearing rock formations. These formations are particularly rich on the Bay of Fundy shores. The Blue Beach near Hansport, Dawkins Fossil Cliffs on the Bay of Fundy shores, has yielded an abundance of Carboniferous age fossils. Watson's Bluff, near the town of Parisboro, has yielded both Triassic and Jurassic age fossils. The highest point is White Hill, at 533 meters above sea level. That's 1,749 feet for you Americans. Above sea level. Situated amongst the Cape Breton Islands in the far north of the province. Nova Scotia is located along the 45th parallel north. So it is midway between the equator and the North Pole. The province contains about 5,000 lakes. Stay hydrated, kids. Nova Scotia lies in the mid-temperate zone, and although the province is almost surrounded by water, the climate is closer to continental climate rather than maritime. Why am I saying climate like that? Anyway, the winter and summer temperature extremes of the continental climate are moderated by the ocean. However, winters are cold enough to be classified as continental, still being nearer the freezing point than inland areas to the west. The Nova Scotia climate is in many ways similar to the Baltic Sea, or similar to the central Baltic Sea, coast of northern Europe, only wetter and snowier. This is true although Nova Scotia has some 15 parallels further south. Areas not on the Atlantic coast experience warmer summers more typical of inland areas, and winter lows are a little colder. On the 12th of August 2020, in the community of Grand Etang, famous for its less sweet winds, with a balmy overnight low of 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Holy shit! Demographics. Wow, this is gonna get boring. Anyway, according to the 2016 Canadian Census, the largest ethnic group in Nova Scotia is Scottish, followed by English, Irish, French, German, First Nations, Dutch, Metis, and Acadian. 26.6 of which identify their ethnicity as Canadian. Hey, that's me. Yeah, I'm a Canadian. Anyway, as of the 2021 Canadian Census, the 10 most spoken language in the province included English, in order from most to least. By the way, I'm not gonna say the amount. Read a Wikipedia article yourself if you want to see how many people. 10 most spoken languages. Province included English, French, Arabic, Hindi, Spanish, Mandarin, Punjabi, German, and Mi'kmaq. Oh, and Tagalog. The question on knowledge of languages allows for multiple responses. 2021 Canadian Census showed a population of 9,069, 383. Of the 9,500, or 9,058, 958,990 singular responses to the census in question concerning mother tongue. The most commonly reported languages were English, French, Arabic, Mandarin, Punjabi, Tagalog, Mi'kmaq, German, Spanish, and Hindi. Anyway, figures show for the number of single language responses and the percentage of the total single language responses. Didn't you just say that? Whatever. Nova Scotia is home to the largest Scotic Gaelic-speaking community outside of Scotland, with a small number of native speakers in Pictou County and Antigonish County. I've been to both those counties, and on Cape Breton Island. And the language is taught in a number of secondary schools throughout the province. I was never taught it. Fine, whatever. In 2018, the government launched a new Gaelic vehicle license plate to raise awareness of the language, to help fund Gaelic language and culture initiatives. They estimated that there were 2,000 Gaelic speakers in the province. Say hi to folks. I have been drinking water like all day. For the 2021 census, religious groups in Nova Scotia included, from most to least. Okay, lightning round. Christianity, religion, Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Judaism, indigenous spirituality, what the hell that means. According to the 2011 census, the largest denominations by number of adherents were Christians. But yeah, non-religious people were 1%. Or what the hell is wrong with me? Yeah, about 21.18% were non-religious, and 1% were Muslims, Jews, Hindus, and Sikhs. Or Sikhs, whatever. Constitute around 20% or 0.20%. In 1871, the blah 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 blah. Nobody cares. Economy. Nova Scotia's per capita GDP in 2016 was 44,924 Canadian dollars, significantly lower than the average national per capita GDP of 57,574 Canadian dollars. GDP growth has lagged behind the rest of the country for at least the past decade. As of 2017, the median family income in Nova Scotia was 85,970, below the national average of 92,990. In Halifax, this figure rises to 98,870. The province is the largest exporter of Christmas trees, lobster, gypsum, and wild berries. Its export values of fish exceeds $1 billion. US dollars. And fish products were received by 90 countries throughout the world. But nevertheless, the province's imports far exceed its exports. Jesus fucking Christ. While these numbers were roughly equal from 1992 to 2004, since that time the trade deficit had ballooned. In 2012, exports from Nova Scotia were 12.1% of the provincial GDP, while the imports were 22.6%. Nova Scotia's traditionally resource-based economy has diverged in recent decades. The rise of Nova Scotia as a viable jurisdiction in North America historically was written by the readily availability. I'm just gonna be done with economy and I'm just gonna stop. How much longer do we have? Never mind, I'm just gonna stop. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye! I'm not reading any more Wikipedia. Bye. Stop recording.